Well, it started out to be a strategic plan, and recently we changed it to being a strategic review after our last Public Works committee meeting. But we started back in February, I guess it was. We had a consultant, you could say, come in and meet with us one day, over a couple days, talk to the staff, and his report, as you went through it, was at the end of my document, which included his summary of the review, some strengths, weaknesses, his thoughts on where we were headed. And over the months after that, we took a look at that. We talked about ourselves and then came up with goals and objectives overall for the department, and then specifically within our various divisions. As you know, we've got a number of divisions. We have our parking operations, parks and open space, public buildings, sewers, streets and roads, and vehicles. And within them, we have, garbage is with the streets and the roads, the parking operations, the meters, the parking garage, public buildings, all of our buildings that we take care of, the vehicles, all the equipment, the police vehicles, et cetera. So those are our various divisions. So we went back and took a look at them and developed what we felt were some goals and objectives for overall for the department and then for each of those groups. So what I'd like to do tonight is run through, hopefully relatively quickly, and then answer any questions that you might have as far as things that we think are important to the Public Works Department. In some cases, things that we're going to be looking for help and decisions on over the next couple months. Some other items where they are more or less procedural for us, how we do our daily operations, how we strive to provide the service to the community. And I'm going to flip over this timer because I know that Mark really doesn't mean that to mean for me. So he told me I had 15 minutes. I will do my best. The biggest thing I think that we've talked about ongoing, and I realize some have joked about it, that it seems like it's been through several iterations of consolidation, is what to do with the public works facilities. Where do we go? And certainly that's a major item that consumes the department, I guess, in a sense, on a daily basis, as far as, where everybody starts each day, what the future holds, where should we be. And I think it's just something that as a group we need to, I hate to say it, make some decisions. And, even a no decision is a good decision because it gives us direction as far as where to go and what to do. I mean, I think right now we're, over the last couple of months with Mark's assistance and engineering and emergency services, we've looked at, we went back, sort of pulled back and looked globally again at where we are, our facilities, as well as other departments, and looked at whether something different for emergency services that ultimately landed us next door on Valley Road, on the old corner where DPW once was, if we put something there for vehicle maintenance. So we've looked at a lot of different options, and to be honest with you, I think right now we're at the point where probably the best thing to provide the best service to the community is to build our cold storage out at River Road and to do improvements both on John Street and also out at Harrison. Both facilities, if we're going to stay in them, though, I have to be honest with you, they need repaired. They need things done at them. We have put money into the capital budget for the next 2 years, for 17 and 18. We're fine-tuning that to give Mark a better number on it, but you've got some HVAC problems at one of the buildings. The trailers that we're in are starting to leak again. We've got issues at John Street. It needs to be paved. We run extension cords over the pavement in order to keep the engine blocks, to plug them in at night in the winter. There's a lot of issues that we've sort of continued to push and push and push, waiting to decide if we were going to make one big facility somewhere or just what we're going to do. So I think I would hope as we look at the capital budget the beginning of the rest of this month and the beginning of next year, we make some decisions and move forward as far as what would be either the long term or certainly, a 5 to 10 year fix fix on some of these facilities, because we do need some improvements if we're going to stay at our two locations. And, we provide very good service out of those because of where we're located. It's great to be right there. We've talked lots, it'd be great to be at River Road, or it'd be great to be someplace where everybody reports at the same time in the morning. The same place. The only place that could happen is River Road. So we're sort of getting off track and spending a little too much time on this, but I mean, that to us is our big issue. That is our major issue. Number one thing that we have to do, bar none, is make a decision so that we can proceed and A, protect our people, and B, protect a lot of the equipment that we have. We've got to make that decision. Other major goals within the department is our workings with Access Princeton. We've struggled. We've done a lot of good things. We've done a lot of not so good things with that group. There are some things that we can do better. They can do better with us. I think we've tried to work at that. It's a work in progress. We need to keep at that. But we did identify that as one of our main goals because it does help us with our documentation and record keeping. Something that we have done in the past. A lot of it's been done manually. This has given us a way to do it and actually have it stored somewhere. So it is very important to keep us going. Continued level of service to our residents, and there's things we can measure with them based on our overtime, tracking meeting our schedules, our leaf and brush schedule, for example. Are we on time? Do we meet that? So that's another major goal that we have. Our preventative maintenance programs for both our equipment, our sanitary sewer system, things that are regulated by various permits and approvals that we have that are either governed by state agencies or just locally, or county agencies. We continually look at our preventive maintenance plans in accordance with those approvals and make sure that we're meeting them. Budget was another one that was identified by the staff as a goal, mostly along the lines of once we get specifically capital budget, that we utilize our capital budget in a timely fashion, that we go out and if we ask for a vehicle, we go get the vehicle. If we ask to do something to a building, we go out and do it with the building, so that we better track and we respond in a more timely manner than we have at times with some of that. One of the frustrations with the vehicles, we ask for money for the vehicles. You're very accommodating in getting us what we need, but then we look for getting those pieces of equipment, those items, under state contracts or under various contracts. Unfortunately, they're not always there when we go looking for them, and then the time frame sort of extends out before we actually get them. And if we could always go out and bid them. Problem sometimes with bidders is you end up with the low bid. It may not necessarily be what you want, even with a vehicle, where with the state contracts and some of the other local contracts that we utilize through various education associations, there's one through the police, we are able to more specifically get what we're looking at. But it is something that we've talked about as a team, being more timely in obtaining those types of items. Emerald ash borer. Obviously a big topic. You spent a couple months on it, talking about it with the Shade Tree Commission. There is money in the capital budget, assuming that some amount of that gets approved for the coming years. It'll be a major task throughout the municipality to deal with both tree removal, tree treatment, and tree replacements. The last goal in our top group for the overall department is with regard to the sewer operating committee and our priority list. I know it's been talked a couple times with the finance committee recently, and I think David Goldfarb and I are probably going to get a request for early next year to come back to finance committee and talk some more, but continuing to make improvements to that part of the infrastructure, the age of it, and utilizing both our capital and as well as outside financing. So those are some of the top 7 items that we have identified as a group. I will tell you that at our last Public Works Committee meeting, when we focused on that, the first 5 were the ones that we had presented, and then the committee thought that the last 2, dealing with EAB and the sewer priority list, should be advanced and put forward as part of the major goals for the department to focus on. One thing that I'll mention that's not on this list that we've talked about and really doesn't appear anywhere else in here is regarding the Central Business District, as far as it being one of our priorities. It's a priority in the sense of trying to keep it clean, maintain it. We've got garbage issues, newspaper box issues, tree issues, et cetera. But from our standpoint, right or wrong, we've sort of looked right now that we know that engineering is going through studies and looking at the templates and different things there. So from the standpoint of making changes or improvements down there, we've sort of looked at it as more as an engineering issue, but certainly it remains as part of our daily activities of going through there. We collect the trash, we look to clean it when we can. We take care of the downtown area as best we can, but certainly it's something I think as we move forward in the future, it does have to be looked at, but it is not something that came up in our top goals. Moving on to the individual departments, and I guess it would have helped if I had moved this along. Going to parking operations. When we get to these specific departments, there's only going to be 1 or 2 of these I'm going to highlight at this point. We certainly can go back, but we're in the process right now of doing goal number 2, working on that, which is a complete evaluation of the Spring Street garage. Since that garage has been built 12, 13 years ago, there has not been a complete inspection, top to bottom, of that garage. There's been some fixes, some leaks patched, some electrical work done, et cetera, but we have not had somebody come in and go top to bottom and look at it. The industry tells you every 10 years you should do that, so we're about 2-3 years behind in getting to that task. We have received some proposals that we're currently evaluating for it, and it's our hope to, at the next meeting, to come before you and ask for approval to engage with one of these consultants to come in and look at it. Proposals, the one proposal we have is under $10,000 right now for it. The other one that we're expecting in any day now is supposed to come in Friday. It hasn't. He's told us he's somewhere in the $10,000 to $15,000 range. So that's the range that we're looking at as far as hiring somebody to come in and do an evaluation at the garage. But it does need to be done. And then ultimately there is some work to be done in that garage. The top floor and the lower floor should be power washed and coated, and there are some areas of concrete erosion that are going to have to be addressed depending on what is looked at. As far as parks and open space, I think one issue that has to be looked at in the coming year will relate to EAB in the parks. We've looked at EAB as far as on municipal streets, some of our properties as far as where our municipal buildings are, but we really have not looked into the parks. And I know that's potentially going to be an issue. Whether or not and how that's dealt with, I honestly don't know, but I know Shade Tree apparently has talked a little bit about looking at that and how they're going to proceed with that. Something that has to be considered, especially in the active parks. Take Harrison, for example. We do have some issues there. A couple of the other parks that are actively used by our community, we are going to have some issues ultimately in those parks. Jumping ahead into public buildings, we began in the middle of last year with some help from our building department. We did an initial condition inventory of our buildings.
Do you want to advance the slide?
Yes, thank you. Parks, buildings. We did do an initial review. Nothing disastrous came up, but we need to drill a little deeper in some of the buildings with the help of our construction department, take a look at some other things and further update that summary in the coming year. The other thing that we have to look at, it's an ongoing process, is our cleaning of the buildings. Currently, we do outsource that. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's perfect. We have struggled. We've struggled mightily this year, as a matter of fact, with regard to it, unfortunately. But it is something that we have spent way too much, yes, as Mark just mouthed to me, way too much time dealing with this year, unfortunately. And we recently met with them last week. We're on a month-to-month with them right now. And hopefully some things get straightened out, or we're going to have to look at some alternatives. The alternatives being going with another group through the state contract, through Access New Jersey, looking at bidding it out, which I'm a little leery of, to be honest, or looking at in-house staff. But it is something that we will be dealing with in the first or second quarter of the new year. As far as the sanitary sewer system, the main thing is the priority list. The SOC staff, we've been working, Tom and myself, with regard to that priority list and updating it. We'll be making the outline of a presentation to SOC when we meet in 2 weeks, I believe it is, on the 20th, with regard to where the direction we're headed with that. But there certainly is plenty of sewer work that can be done, should be done, and that we're coordinating with the engineering department. So that will be a major report that we'll put together as far as where we're headed there. Streets and roads, we continue to work with the engineering department with regard to that. Dan and Chris Torres, Dan Van Mater, Chris Torres, Henry Lake have done a very good job over the past year of sort of working towards more of an annual maintenance plan and getting a better grip of routine and a cycle of which we do some of that maintenance. That needs to continue to improve as we move forward. And the two other things that we have that we lump in under streets and roads is trash, recycling, and food waste collection. As we talked about a month or so ago when you extended the contract for both the trash and in particular the food waste, in the coming year, collectively we need to make some decisions on where we're going with that. Is the food waste program staying as it is? Are we going to adjust it? Just how are we going to proceed with it, rebid it? If we're going to continue with it, we will have to rebid the service because we just did the last time extension for Central Jersey as far as collecting it. I know at Public Works Committee we have talked a couple times regarding recycling, whether or not we should look to bid recycling ourselves and see what kind of number we get and compare it to the number we get with the county. And we've also talked with regard to trash, whether there's something different we should be doing with trash. You know, a pay-as-you-go type program, very popular in some of the New England states. Don't necessarily know how what our reaction here would be, but it's certainly something that in the coming months, I think Public Works Committee will have to look at and then come back to the governing body to talk about. Brush and leaf, I'll just skip that. Nobody wants to talk about brush and leaves. Brush and leaf collection is an ongoing...
You need to change the slide.
I was trying to skip it. Brush and leaf is an ongoing battle to maintain our schedule. I can tell you happily that we are on schedule. Now, you may look outside and say, no, you're not. And I'm going to tell you that, yes, we are. Because where people have put it out in accordance with schedule, we've collected, and within probably by midday Wednesday, this is Section 3 this week, and we will be complete with Section 3 by the middle of the week. Section 4 and 5, which starts next week, most people, every leaf came down in the last week and a half since last we were in those sections. There's a lot of leaves out there. We're going to hopefully even start early with that on some of the major roads by the end of the week. And I can tell you, I probably should have done it during announcements, but as we have in the past, there will be a municipal-wide pickup starting 2 weeks from today. So that'll be the week of the 19th. The 4 days that we're in, we will go back and do municipal-wide. There will be robocalls that will go out. There'll be from social media, the website, et cetera. Everything will be done. We do have some areas in Section 1 that are very heavy, again, because of the cycle of when the leaves came down. We're aware of that. We started today telling people we had a number of calls, I guess I should say, today with regard to that, but in Section 1, we will be coming back, as we will with all the sections. But Section 3 is in pretty good shape, and then we'll get through 4 and 5 next week and be done the week after. But, leaf and brush is a continual battle. It takes up a lot of time. It takes up a lot of the staff time and equipment. We do a lot of collection in the spring, we do collection through the summer, and we do a lot of collection in the fall. And I say that in comparison to other communities. We do a lot of collection. Decisions will have to be made. Do we continue to do this much collecting? As I said to you a couple weeks ago, one thing that we cut back on a bit was some of the bag collection. And the reason we cut back on the bag collection is we were not collecting what we were supposed to in the bags. People were putting dirt in them, rocks in them, trash in them. You'd be surprised what they were putting in them. They were not putting leaves. We eliminated one of the collections for August because we're not getting what we are supposed to. So it is an ongoing battle, something that, again, Public Works Committee will have to discuss and make recommendations as far as if we proceed at this level. The last group relates to our vehicles and our equipment, and we do have an inventory of our vehicles. A lot of that was done in conjunction with Sustainable Princeton, and one of the goals that they had, and one of the items for their certification. We continue, Larry Churchwell continues to update that, with staff. It's something we continue to track. There are some vehicles that we'll have to look at in the future as we go do some more replacements of some smaller vehicles. Do we do something electric? Do we look at alternate fuel sources? The problem with that right now is the drive is to Trenton in order to get that fuel for some of the vehicles, and when he's costed out for some of our larger pieces of equipment, it's just not cost effective at this point for us to do it. And one thing that we will have to look at as we look at our vehicle and our fleet is if we are going to make changes to some of the vehicles, what impact does that have on the maintenance aspect of it? Do we have the staff knowledge, and do we have the equipment in order to work on some of these pieces of equipment if we change what they are? And quite honestly, I think we can. There's going to be an expense, and there's going to be some training. But in general, our staff is pretty talented that works on our vehicles. So I can sit here and tell you I have a lot of confidence that if we go in a different direction, they would be able to, learn and be able to work on these pieces of equipment. So those are some of the highlights, I guess you could say, of, what we've looked at as where we are, what our review of our capabilities. I think if you look at the observations of Dave Walgum when he was here, I think a couple of things that he noted was the facilities. I believe he was pretty impressed with our staff and in meeting with them and talking with them about their abilities and about their enthusiasm for their jobs and for working in Princeton and getting their work done. I think that he, there was one other thing I was going to mention, but, in general, I think he thought that we had a good staff. One of the things that he noticed in asking people about questions is the amount of time that we spend doing the little thing. When somebody calls up and says there's a problem on their street, and boom, we send somebody out to do it. Somebody calls up and says we need to do this. We go and do something. The day he was here, he watched and listened to a crew that got a phone call about somebody complained that there were stones in the street. We sent a crew out, we sent somebody, 2 people, out to clean up the mess that was in the street. And he looked at us and was like, really? You know, why are you doing that? Why are you taking time from your routine and going to do that? And as the staff explained, well, if we don't, then that person's going to call so-and-so, who's going to call so-and-so, who always going to call so-and-so, who's going to call either Dan or Bob, and before you know it, we're going to go do it. So guess what? It's easier for us to go do it. And that was their answer to them. So, you know, we can laugh about it, but that's what happens on a day-to-day basis. And I know Public Works Committee is aware of it. They've listened to us tell those tales of somebody calling up and saying, you know, there's broken glass on our street. Can someone clean it up? Yes, you could walk out and clean it up, but we end up normally sending somebody out there. So those were some of his observations. So anyway, that's sort of where we're at this point, and I probably took up more than my 15 minutes. I'm not going to turn that over, but if there's any questions or thoughts or things we should look at,